Ready.
I'm here with Grant Baldwin, the head of the protest committee for the Hydrofoil Pro Tour event stop in San Francisco, California, hosted by the St. Francis Yacht Club. Grant has been a long-time supporter of the kite foil fleet and has seen a lot of developments throughout the class. And I wanted to ask him about what this regatta sees differently than in the past. What are the major rules changes we're doing here?
We've seen this this fleet of sailors evolve. The rules have evolved. The sailors' knowledge and the skill. The boards have changed. The gear changes. They're going ever faster. So there are a lot of challenges to the application of the racing rules, both on the part of the rider as well as those of us who have to sort things out in the aftermath. So we have to understand, I think, as juries, how these kites behave. It is very important. I was talking to Andrew earlier this evening. We first kind of came together as two different worlds in Melbourne, Australia, 5 or 6 years ago, and on a large scale. And the riders were at sea with the racing rules of sailing, and we did not understand well how they behaved. And so in the course of the week or 10 days that we were together, I think we each got a lot smarter. From that point on, we've been very close with this fleet, and they've dragged us along. I have worked consistently with the San Francisco fleet, and they tend to adopt judges that are understanding of their stuff. And so what I do here is I try to help other of my colleagues understand as much as possible about how these kites behave. A little of the culture, a little of the behavior patterns, and as Steve just mentioned, we're sailing under a set of test rules for this event that are going to be the rules under which everybody will sail in 2017. So they are new. They are new to the sailors. They're new to the jury. They reflect the thinking and the evolution of this fleet's thinking over the past 4 years. So I think it's a work in progress. I think we will continue to make adjustments. And so our obligation at the conclusion of this event will be to make a report back to World Sailing and to the U.S. Sailing Rules Committee on our experience here. And it is my hope that we will be able to do that in enough time to allow for them to integrate that thinking and potentially make some minor adjustments to what they have.
So Grant, at the rules seminar you gave on Thursday morning, you talked about the new zone that's taking place around the marks. We're no longer about to round, but we are going to now enter a 30-meter zone around a course. And if a board, it's hull only, enters that overlapped, you've now got to give another boat rounding, similar to what's been going on in the yacht racing rules.
Yeah, sailboat
Rule 18.
Yeah.
So we talked about one of the challenges of how it might work well upwind, but not so well downwind. Yeah. Did you see any examples of the downwind example playing out in your protest
today? We did
today?
not. No, we did not. Okay. But I think that I think as a group, we accept that the closing speeds on the downwinds as you come into these gate marks are very high, and it may be an unreasonably small bit of space for boats to acquire rights and to avoid one another.
So does that put a more emphasis on redress as a result of the ambiguity of the rules?
It could. It could. I think, however, and this has been the hallmark of this fleet right along, is that you have a certain culture. There's an accepted method of getting around the course. And especially at the bottom mark, I think people are very attentive to relative speeds and who's going to go around that thing first. And it may not be the best advantage to round that mark first. There's a very awkward rounding for one of the two of those jobs. And it may be that that a smart sailor rounds second in a more convenient way.
A little bit more cautiously
Yes.
and paying attention to the rules.
Yeah, it could be.
I'm glad to see that come of age. The kids paying attention to the rules. As more championship rule regattas we host, I think we get more international people coming in, and probably have a better sense of the rules than our local beach community.
Well, one of the things that attracts me to working with this fleet is that it is the surfer aspect of this, and I think that a lot of people come to kiting from places other than conventional sailboat racing, and over the time that I've been working with them, there are truly the most remarkable sportswomen and men that I have an opportunity to work with. They are the very best. They care for each other. They behave according to the rules as long as they come to know them. And so my job is to be helpful, and I'm trying to learn from the sailors, and hopefully they learn a little bit from me. But I think it's a collaborative effort, and we've had a really good time together over the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I've been involved in maybe the past 2 years, and the amount of informational dialogues I think has been really cool. Before races, before big events, I've sat down in the rules seminar in Mexico and here, and I think as a result, people start thinking about the rules, and there's been a lot of offshoot and discussions about. And people come in and say, "Hey, I raised my hand. Why didn't you tack?" And they said, "Because the guy next to me didn't tack." And all of a sudden, the chain goes down the fleet.
Well, and of course, tonight we did hear some protests, and there were redresses involved and so forth, and they did include the business of this new rule and the obligation to hail as well as hand signal.
So what do we learn from tonight? We obviously race on a very skewed race course where we start on starboard tack, and 2 minutes later we hit an obstruction,
a rock wall.
So everyone is forced to tack.
Right.
So that starts a chain of events down where everyone is forced to tack.
Right.
How did it play out?
I think generally well. There were some surprises, as there always are, especially when people are unfamiliar with this sailing venue. The San Francisco fleet on Thursday nights has this down pretty much to a choreographed move, right? It doesn't require a whole lot of hand signaling or anything else. The hand signal is part of the new rule, and so we have invoked that requirement for this event.
So remind me, in addition to the obligatory hail of UTAC, or?
So you've got, there are two pieces. So someone approaching an obstruction needs to hail repeatedly and hand signal, all right? If I am having to afford them room at that obstruction, I have two responses available to me. I either tack immediately, or I say you tack, which implies that I have a way to avoid you. But in either case, those responses need to be relatively immediate.
So two obligatory rules that come into play. The hand signal, come into an obstruction, circle, say I'm about to tack, and the response by the UTAC or
UTAC with a point to windward. And so I think these are habits that have already been acquired by many sailors. So this is not a big change. But we did discover a couple of things, and that there is, in approaching on a windward leg, a large continuing obstruction, such as a rock wall, there is a blind spot. And so the kiter has behind him or her a large window where they just cannot see. And so it's possible for sailors to be in another rider's blind spot and he or she not know that. And we found that that was the case in a couple of the hearings that we conducted tonight. So it's probably worthy of some discussion, and there may be some mechanism. But I think that in San Francisco, this is a known situation. You're approaching this wall. You've got a stack of riders, typically, and so you need to be aware. It's just a course awareness thing, and it might be. And we came away with with this takeaway with one of our hearings is that it would be a good plan to always signal, whether you've got knowledge of somebody behind you or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a turn signal on a car. You always hit that signal.
Good manners.
Right.
And what about Rule 13? Do we run into any protest on that?
Nothing yet, but of course we've scrubbed Rule 13 out of there, so there is no longer a wind tacking. Okay, the tacking boat is no longer an applicable rule. You are either on port or you are on starboard, and so it will depend on the last point of certainty. And this task will fall to a protest committee or sailors if they're in the midst of a dispute. But there is no situation under which you are a tacking board any longer. You're either a port tack or a starboard tack.
Tacking board no longer has to give way to other boats. You're either on port or starboard.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, that clears up a lot of things. We've only got 4 more years to figure it out.
Yeah, I know it.
That starts in 2017. This is the first opportunity for Appendix F to be tested out. So hopefully we'll give some good feedback, and they'll incorporate any rules suggestions.
Well, the rules geeks are counting on us to be able to do that. They're waiting for our response, and I think this is a great opportunity. Doing test rules and having a fleet that is accepting of that is a real asset to the sailing community. So what this group of great kiters are doing is kind of pioneering something. They're leading the way. We have a little bit of time to offer feedback. I'm not sure if there's much time to make corrections, but if we find something that's glaring, we will bring it to them, and maybe they will want to kill something. But I don't expect that will happen. I think we're just going to learn how this new jacket feels and what we're going to have to do to accommodate it.
Well, let's all get used to the new jacket.
Yeah.
Grant, thanks for your time.
Thanks, buddy.